And welcome back to the Plank. Tom Corn along with John Sable. It's that time to delve into the fantasy side of football. Who's hot this week and who to keep an eye on. So we're going to toss it out there to Matt McGuire, who's enjoying that beautiful weather outside. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Tom. Thanks a lot. Yeah, we're here on Week 14 on the Ram Fantasy Football Tailgate, and hopefully your playoff chances are looking a little brighter than the Bucs are right now. But as we get this late in the season, there's a couple things you want to look at. Most importantly are the matchups each week, and also keep an eye on the weather. Look at Eddie Lacy yesterday. He was in a cold, rainy game up there in Green Bay, and he had a great game. He was a guy I highlighted a few weeks ago who's someone who plays really well once that weather starts getting a little nasty. So keep an eye on the weather in your fantasy football matchups. If it's going to be a snow game or a rain game, you might want to, stay away from a quarterback or a wide receiver because of that. But injuries are always going to play a factor in fantasy football, whether it's a minor injury like Vincent Jackson this week with the knee, or something major like what happened to Andy Dalton or Thomas Rawls, the running back there for the Seahawks. He broke his ankle and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So the Seahawks now are on their third and fourth running back. And so to me what that means is I look at the passing game in Seattle to try to carry them the rest of the way. So the first guy that I'm looking to add this week is Tyler Lockett. He's the rookie wide receiver for the Seahawks. They're very big on him from all the way back in the preseason. They've been raving about his ability, and now he's finally getting a chance to prove it. He had a great game with 7 catches for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns yesterday. The week before that, he had another 90 yards. So he's really starting to come into his own. And like I said, with the running back situation like it is in Seattle, I look for them to lean more on that passing game. We've talked about Doug Baldwin a lot, but Tyler Lockett's a guy who's probably still out there on waivers in your league. Another player that you might want to add this week is Tim Hightower. We saw that firsthand yesterday, what he was able to do in New Orleans filling in for Mark Ingram. Now, he had 28 carries. That's more carries than any Saints running back has had all season. So I don't know if his workload is going to be like that game in and game out, but if it is, he's definitely somebody that you can feel confident about riding into the playoffs. With those 28 carries, he had 85 yards and a touchdown. A lot of people thought C.J. Spiller would get some of the work, but it looked like a strong dose of Tim Hightower, and it really ate up the Bucs, especially with that time of possession. Now, there's another guy out there at the running back position that a lot of people are picking up, but I'm not so hot on him this week, and that's Denard Robinson, a running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had a great game with 14 attempts, 75 yards and a touchdown, but if you look at the actual box score there, all of that production came in the fourth quarter. It was a big blowout against the Colts, and so they were running the ball a lot. T.J. Yeldon is still the main running back for the Jaguars, so I don't really think Robinson's going to be a guy that you're going to want to put any kind of stock into heading into the playoffs. But I talked earlier about the matchups. One of the biggest matchups that you always want to look at every single week when talking about which running backs to start are the defenses that they're playing against. If it's a team that's got a real strong run defense, you're really going to want to consider maybe looking at another running back to put into your lineup. And when you look at the top 5 run defenses in the NFL, you've got the Arizona Cardinals, the Carolina Panthers, Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks, and the New York Jets. The Jets only gave up 24 yards rushing last week. The Broncos had a great game, against the Raiders. They held them to under 40 yards. The Seahawks held their opponent to under 28 yards. So you really want to make sure that if you've got a guy who you're on the fence about starting and it's at the running back position, take a look at the defense that he's going up against. That can usually give you a little bit of an advantage if you have a defense that's not very good against the run, or likewise if you're going against a real strong rushing defense. So again, take a look at the weather and also pay attention to those key matchups week in and week out. That's all I've got here for Week 14 on the Ram Fantasy Football Tailgate. We'll go back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Matt, thanks again.
Matt, I got to give Matt a lot of props because I made the playoffs single-handedly because of his suggestions on who I should pick up in the last few weeks on the waiver wire.
Awesome.
So I made it, and I had a first-round bye. Let me just give you the players that Matt told me to pick up in the last month if you've been watching the show. Doug Baldwin, Spencer Ware, and Ruben Randall. Now, not household names, but guys that I picked up on the waiver wire because Matt, suggested it, and they all three just coincidentally had great games for me. And I won last week. If I would have lost, I would have not been playoff eligible, and I wouldn't have had a playoff bye. So I won last week, so I had a playoff bye this week. And
so it sounds to me like you owe Matt a little something.
I do. Matt, we need to get in talk here after you get back from the Ram tailgate.
I'll make sure.
I owe you.
All
now,
right.
the real question is, what's he going to help me do in the playoffs? Because I got some tight end problems.
Dude, sometimes you got to stand up for yourself.
I know, but he's a fantasy guru for a reason.
All right, we got to go. All right, we'll be right back.